Hi, good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining me on my story. Uh, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Johnny Cash. Just kidding. Start off with a little humor. My name is Scott Benton, and I am 58 years old. I have survived a aortic dissection 8 years ago. Before my dissection, as you know, if you've had one, we've all had this normal life beforehand. I was a cop. I was a power lifter. My wife was a power lifter. We were both personal trainers too. I was a detective. So we were very active in everything until August 30th, 2017. I'm sure every one of y'all remember the day. Mine started, like I said, I was a detective. I got off work, got home, slammed a bottle of water real quick, and felt like my chest exploded. I've never felt pain like that. Um, I went through SWAT school with a knee that needed to be replaced. So this will tell you, this hurt so bad. I literally begged God, please don't let me die, because I thought I was dying. Told my wife, I am hurting. I am hurting. She goes, well, you just slammed that bottle of water. Maybe it's a big gas bubble. Took some Gas X, walked around. She's beating me on the back, not helping any. And like I say, I am hurting. Finally, I said, I'm going to go lay down, maybe that'll help. Went to the bedroom. Well, her cat, Tom, was laying on the bed, would not let me lay down, which was unusual for Tom. Tom is a very gentle and loving cat. He got up, head butted my hand. She was in there with me, tried to bite her. She grabbed him, threw him off the bed, and as soon as his feet hit the ground, he turned right around, jumped back up there. This continued on for several minutes until finally she looked at me and she said, "You don't look good." Checked my blood pressure and it was 220 over 100 and something. So, good golly. So we called an ambulance. Ambulance came. They took me to the hospital, Methodist University in Memphis, Tennessee. And now you want to talk about, I know God was watching over me, because the doctor that was on duty that night was a thoracic surgeon who knew exactly what was going on. I got in with, they told him the symptoms and everything, and they took me and put a central line in my neck, sent me in for a CT scan, came back, and they said, you were having an aortic dissection. My wife and I looked at each other like, what in the Sam Hill is that? Had no clue. They immediately put me in cardiovascular ICU, where for the next 12 days, they fought to get my blood pressure down because it was continuing to tear. After 12 days, they had me stable and everything, and they sent me home. But like I said, during that 12 days, my doctor, God knew what he was doing. God had a plan for me that I didn't have a clue about. We didn't have a clue about. And as you know, when you first find out about it, you've got an aortic dissection, everything you read on the internet, until you start finding groups like Aortic Hope and things like that, everything you read is negative. It was basically, well, your life is going to be, you'll be able to sleep and walk to the couch and sit down, and that's pretty much it. You can't ride a bike, you can't run, you can't lift weights, you can't get excited, you can't do this, can't do that. And it was really scary, to go from, hey, I was a cop, I was a weightlifter, we did stuff in the yard, to you can't do squat. That's scary. But after 12 days, they had everything done and they let me go home, which was scarier because, all is you've got something that happened to you where you could die quick, fast, in a hurry. And you're afraid of every little thing, every little pain or whatever just hurt. And it just freaked you out. Our first week home, I got home on a Monday. Friday, I was supposed to do a follow-up with my primary care physician. I'm sorry. That morning, we get up, and you know how it is. Your week is everything and all that. Well, here's big old me, 6'5". At the time, I was about 370. My wife is 5'6", and a lot smaller. Give me a bath. Well, she's giving me a shower. My first, it's my first. We've been home 4 days. She's giving me a shower, and I told her, I said, I don't feel real good. I turned around to face her in the shower, like you're stepping out of the shower, and passed out. She just said I just dropped. I woke up and my knees are wedged against the shower and everything, the bathtub walls, and she is panicked because she thinks I just died. She doesn't know what's going on. And of course, don't exert yourself, don't lift. Well, I'm helping lift to get me unstuck. Called the ambulance. Of course, the fire department and the ambulance show up and they check my blood pressure. And at that point in time, it was 100 over 70, maybe. I know it was 100. But they said, oh, yeah, they helped me up, get me to the couch. Well, off I went to the doctors, and the doctor went, no, you got to go to the hospital, dude. So off I went back to the hospital to get checked out and everything rechecked. And no, hadn't gotten any worse. But yeah, that was kind of really scary, really scary. So yeah, it was interesting. I mean, like I say, to go from being able to do all this stuff to I couldn't walk from our bedroom to the living room without I'm done for the day. And then it got to be where, okay, today I'm going to walk down the front steps. And that was it. That was my thing for the day. And then from the front steps, it got to be, okay, we're going down to the sidewalk. And my wife would carry a camping chair with me because once we got down there, I'd have to sit down, and rest for a while before I could make the long trip back. But just continued on until eventually, we were walking, a couple miles a day, which was, good. It helped everything get things back. Once I started feeling better and was able to do stuff like that, well, all of a sudden, you know how guys are. If we get that Superman mentality, I'm the Superman, I can do this and I can do that. When you know good and well, you're not supposed to be doing it because the doctor said you're not supposed to be doing it, but you do it anyway. And I'm guilty of that just big time. I got out and I pushed the lawnmower, cut grass, used the weed eater, and then, you're not supposed to do that. Well, I can do it, so why can't I do it? Well, just because you can do it don't mean you should do it. So yeah, that kind of took a toll. And I have no one to blame but me. But yeah, I think that started the whole aneurysm thing that started developing down. And because of my dissection, I started developing an aneurysm. The unfortunate part is I couldn't keep a thoracic surgeon. The one I initially started with, after a couple of years, he retires. So they bring in this other guy. And at first, he and I didn't really jihad a whole lot because, you have some doctors you get along with and other ones you just don't like. He was one of those ones I just didn't like. We just didn't jihad a whole lot. And the main reason being was, it's not that I want to be sugar-coated with a doctor, but at the same time, I don't want just total bluntness. I want a little bit of, hey, you're doing a good job of this, but something. And so, yeah, that's why we kind of didn't jihad. But he, I went to see him and he said, yep, you're probably going to have to go to Houston and get that replaced. Oh, okay. Well, I did wind up talking to two great, wonderful surgeons down in Houston, Texas. Dr. Gustavo Oderich, who wound up being a surgeon for me, which I'm getting to in just a minute. Great doctor. If y'all are looking for a surgeon, I can highly, highly recommend Gustavo Oderich. He is with Baylor University now. He was with University of Texas at Houston. But anyways, I'll get to that in a minute. I continued on, still medically managed, keeping an eye on everything. And then in 2022, a ton of things happened. And you know how it is. You just kind of lose track of time. My grandmother passed away at 99 and a half years old. And I was in charge of all that, dealing with her because my dad, was in South Carolina. So I dealt with all of that. I'm the one that found her, and all this. You dealing with all of that. My wife had a miscarriage. Then they had to have surgery to put stents in, and just everything that kind of happened just kind of delayed what I should have done in the first place. which was keep up with getting a CT scan, and I didn't. I kind of let it go for till 2024. So I let it go for about 2 years, which was not a good thing. But anyways, when I finally did get it done back in 2024, went to see the doctor, same one, and he said, "Yep, you're going to Houston. Don't even come back in for a follow-up. Go to Houston." Contacted Dr. Aortic, and he saw the scans, and he went, "Yep, we're fixing to replace your lower aorta." Okay, cool. Can you give me some idea? How long is this surgery going to take? Take about 3 hours, and you should be good to go. Okay, cool. So off we went to Houston. My surgery was on election day, 2024. Supposed to take 3 hours. Well, my wife told me later that after about 7 hours, Dr. Aortic came out and said, "I needed a break. We're still in there working." It was a lot more complicated than what they thought, because apparently my anatomy matches less than 15% of the world population. I have a strange anatomy, which kind of explains why. Like I said, I'm 6'5". My parents are 5'6" and 5'7". My grandparents were 4 foot and 4'11" and 5'7". Needless to say, there's nobody tall in my family until you hit me. But anyways, we did the first surgery in November, election day. And the first words out of my mouth after I came to, "Who won?" They get a kick out of telling that story. I asked who won the election. But I did great. I spent 10 days in the hospital down there after having my lower aorta replaced. And then they contacted this place in Australia that makes these custom-made grafts, stents, grafts. And they had one made for my upper aorta, going from the where it curves down to meet, where they replaced it. They had that made for me, where I had that surgery in January of this year, where they went in and replaced that. So now, yeah, I'm a lot better. They, when I asked him, I said, "Any restrictions?" And he's there. I'm still kind of limited on some of the weights I can do. Of course, I'm not fixing to hit the weights like I used to do. I'm not going to power lift or anything like that anymore. But I am still kind of limited on what I can do. But I am a whole lot better. I can get out and do stuff. Do stuff with my son, with my wife, get out and work in the garden and all, like we've been doing, things like that. So it was definitely worth it. And again, I go back to, I look back and I see where God has been with me every step of the way on this thing, because I look at, most people would look at something like this as bad. And at first it was, you think of, man, why? But then I look at all the good that has come out of what I've been able to do with this. When this first happened, my son was 7th grade, starting 7th grade. Yeah, starting 7th grade. So I got to go with him, band camp, and, go watch him at, the football games, playing in the band, and go to his concerts and things like that, which I wouldn't have been able to do being a police officer. That was cool. I got to be home with my wife. Of course, she became my full-time caregiver. Right. And we got to really grow through this together. And she's great at finding information. She found a lot of information, and we started digging, and that's how we came across Aortic Hope, and then learning from there. Because if nothing, one of the things you've got to learn is, when you have something like this happen and you've got to retire, like I had to retire from my job. I couldn't continue being a cop with a medically managed dissection. You just can't do it. So I had to retire. Well, at first everybody was, "Hey, how you doing? You doing good?" Well, after about a month, everybody's like, "Okay, well, when we see you, we'll see you." And after about 5 months, where's everybody? You have nobody. So you've got to start making other friends and things like that and meeting people. You've got to get out and still live, even though you have something that the majority of the people don't have. But you've still got to get out and live. But you've got, that was always something. I want to live. I want to live. And you've got to have that mindset. I want to live. I might not live like I used to, but I still want to live. I'm not made to just sit. Get out and live. The second thing I learned quick, fast, in a hurry was every doctor I met, when there was a new doctor, new nurse, or whatever, the first thing what do you know about aortic dissections? Because believe it or not, I met nurses and I met doctors who had no clue. It's like, thanks, but deuces, dude. This is, my life is too valuable no. Just because I'm not afraid, never been afraid to, but I'm not afraid to ask a doctor or a nurse questions, because they're human. They're going to make mistakes. I'm going to make sure that what you're doing for me is what's right for me. And that's one thing don't be afraid to ask your doctor a question. He is not perfect, because, the old joke, what do you call the guy who graduated last to medical school? Doctor. So, their diploma does not say graduated bottom. It just says doctor. So therefore, I ask lots of questions because it's my life. Need to ask questions. Ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions because your doctor expects you to ask questions. Yeah, it's your life. And I read this today, and it just really hit home. You've heard the old saying, the old acronyms, push, pray until something happens, things like that. Fear, false evidence appearing real, But I heard today hope, and someone said hope stands for hold on, pain ends. And it's like, wow, that kind of hit home because it's like, yeah, hold on there because the pain that you're going through when you first have this dissection and surviving through it, it gets better. It does get better, believe it or not. If you're just starting this journey, it gets better. If you've been on for 20 years, you definitely know it gets better. There's some ups and downs, but it does get better. Just got to hang in there and keep on rolling. I'm sorry if I'm getting off on a tangent, not telling you my whole story, but I kind of did. It just, other than it turned, life topsy-turvy, we're survivors. Be strong, be proud, because we survived something that, not a lot of people have. The surgeon, when I first went in the hospital, told me while I was in CVICU that 2 more came into having dissections and they both passed away. So yeah, we've survived something that not many people have survived. And, God's been with us. You might not think it, but I know he has, because you're still here. And as long as you're still here, then you're living, you've got a purpose. As long as you got a purpose, keep on going. So I hope I've encouraged you. Maybe you've laughed a little bit. Maybe you've got something out of it. But I thank you for listening to me. And if you have any questions, I think we're fixing to do some live questions and answers. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions. Just let me know. Thanks.
That's a well said story. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Right away, we're going to say hi to the gallery. We've got Ken, who says, good morning from Brisbane, Australia. How are you doing, Scott?
Oh, cool. That's where I'm part Australian now with that piece that was made in Australia. So I'm doing good. Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah. Velda's dialing in from Canada. She's our Canadian Aortic Hope Canada rep for the support groups. We've got Tom with us as well. Everybody's just saying hello. So you're 8 years out.
Yes.
When you first got back to the house and things started to get back to normal, how often did you have to change your medications?
I actually, that's actually a good question. I quite frequently at first, because they put me on different ones to try to see which one was going to keep my blood pressure down. Because initially I was medically managed, and so they put me on a bunch of different ones. And that's when I found out like nifedipine was no good for me. It caused my legs to swell. I mean, wake up in the morning and I mean, within 5 minutes, my legs were swollen bigger than I could stand. So yeah, I did a funny story about that real quick. I went to a cardiologist. Well, it turns out he wasn't a cardiologist for thoracic for that, but he recognized what it was and took me off of nifedipine and put me on carvedilol, which has been awesome.
Massive change. Okay.
Yes.
Right. That's big. I think it's very big. When I first got involved with the support groups, I would hear the stories about people going through their medication changes, and we had a doctor of pharmacology come on and kind of tell everyone, kind of point blank, you're going to get a list of side effects. The point of those side effects is for you to let us know that you're experiencing them so that we can try a new medication. You're not supposed to live with the side effects. And it seemed like the community was like, oh, so these are the things I should expect as a side effect, like should expect, instead of, oh, this begins a conversation with our medical teams. So that's very cool. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I know like there were times where we called it going down the rabbit hole. My wife and I called it going down the rabbit hole because I was taking so much that my blood pressure would actually drop so bad, I would literally pass out. It would drop so one time it was like 80/40 and things like that. And I mean, I would literally pass out. And we had to go talk to the doctor. Hey, which one is, what can we do? And they were making all sorts of adjustments because, yeah, I was bad.
Okay.
And like I said, I'm not afraid to ask. I'm not afraid to talk to anybody. Being a cop for 30 years, you learn. But, the way I always look at it is my life. I want to know, ask my doctor, what's going on? What can we do to make it better?
Yeah, I hear you. Self-advocacy is the thing that we preach, very big. You'll have heard somebody at some point say, at one point, you're going to know more about your disease than your doctors are. So be ready to educate.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
One of our board members, he's had 2 dissections. They happened on tax day on 2 different occasions, and he's also our Marfan ambassador. And very often when he's at the teaching hospitals, they bring in all kinds of students, and he tells them flat out, ask all of the questions you could possibly ask. We are rare. Yeah.
Yeah. And
shout out to Bill.
I have heard that from so many doctors about what a rare deal it is. I forgot to mention on that that first week back from the hospital, when we went to the doctors that day, he came in, my primary care physician came in, and he looked, he said, I've had 2 other patients with an aortic dissection, and they both died. And you're like, okay, not exactly what I wanted to hear.
Right.
But yeah, it was so amazing. The negative information that you find out there is just scary. It's scary. I remember we asked my surgeon while I was in the hospital. My wife looked at him and said, when we get home, can he swim? And the doctor, I don't know. Does he know how? Well, yeah. Well, then he can go swimming. But everything we're reading is, oh, you can't do this, can't do that, can't do this, can't do that.
Yeah.
It's spooky,
Yeah, especially 8 years ago. Yeah, 8 years ago is very different.
Yes. Now it's becoming, we have noticed there have actually been a couple of TV shows where people have had aortic dissections, and they've caught it, the doctors have caught it and things like that. And, it just jumps out at us immediately. Wow, aortic dissection. They talked about us. That's cool.
That's very cool.
Because, you feel like you're in this really, really, it's an exclusive club, because not many people have this. And of course, what sucks is, when you first have it and you're weak and all this, and, you I have handicap tags on my truck because I really can't walk long distances without still being tired and things like that. I get out of the truck. Well, people see this 6'5" dude who looks normal, and they look like, what's wrong? And it's on the inside, Sorry, I don't look, I'm not whatever, but yeah. That is stigma you got to get past too. Is that
Yeah.
people all of a sudden look at you funny because you look normal. So how do you
To
explain?
to tie into that, there's early in my work with Karen, uh, she was really being candid about having a good day, and how having a good day may make it seem like she's better. But when you have this, there are good days, and they stand out. But that there is no better. There is
Yeah.
still the roller coaster ride that is post aortic dissection life.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's yeah. Normal is, as they say, normal is not coming back. You got a new normal. Um, but it's also how you make it. But the biggest thing that I've had to learn, well, my wife and I both had to understand is there are some days where I got up, I got dressed, I made it to the living room. That's that's my day. I mean, you're just mentally, physically, all of it just I'm wiped out, and that's okay, because it's going to be that way some days.
Yeah.
You can't help it. It's part of it. You're going to be wiped out, and then but the next day's going to be better. I know it's going to be better.
Mm-hmm.
Um, faith. Sorry, faith is a big thing with me. I'm a Christian. I pray. I believe in the Word. Trust me, when this first happened, I found me some Bible verses and I prayed them every day. And the biggest ones I found was, "I will not die. I will not die. I will not die," and because it's in the Bible. And trust me, that got me through a ton, because there were, when this first happens and you're at home, it's your first week at home and your chest starts hurting. Oh
Mm.
man, you're, you know, and you start, "I will not die. I will not die, but live. I will not die, but live and declare the works of the Lord." And you start claiming that to make you feel better, to healing, to whatever, because you can't. There's somebody, you cannot tell me if you survived this that there wasn't somebody there watching over you, because this is not something that, it's not a sprained toe or a broken thumb. This is a major, major ordeal. And if you survive this, somebody was there
Yeah.
with you.
I can hear that. Ken says friends is the hard part. He says he found aortic hope and made new friends. How have you made new friends?
The biggest way I made several through aortic hope, because, and like I said, I love my cop friends, but yeah, I lost a lot of them when this happened. And it's not their fault, it's not my fault. It's just something you don't understand, and you don't understand how you can help. You can't see any way to help, and so they just kind of go by the wayside. Okay, you know, it happens. But yeah, the biggest thing is I met a bunch through aortic hope. Started getting involved in some stuff too. Got to meeting some people, some friends through Facebook, and then started chatting with them and actually built a relationship with them, and actually started sending out the daily blessing to a bunch of friends on Facebook Messenger, where I'll send out a daily blessing to everybody in the mornings on Messenger. And yeah, they start communicating, but it gives them something, gives me some. So kind of what I do.
I like it. Facebook and social media, they're powerful. They're huge. Just the fact that
They,
we're interacting with, Brisbane right now. You know what I mean?
oh,
That's
that's cool.
it's so cool.
I mean, I never thought. I had a friend a few years ago that was a cop in Queensland, Australia, but I never, if I talked to him, it was through Messenger, something like this. To actually feel like I'm talking to a guy in Brisbane, Australia live is really cool.
Yeah,
Kind of neat.
it's
When you
a
think
bit.
about it.
It is.
I mean, I think about when I was a kid back in high school, back in the 80s. Um, you know, I'd have never thought about talking to somebody in Australia. Never thought I'd be able to. Now, what's up?
What's up?
That's cool. Canada. I mean, we're talking to someone in Canada, and at the same time talking to someone in Australia, so that's really cool.
Yeah, yeah.
It's amazing
We reach everywhere.
technology.
That's the idea. When you get back to the house and you're going through the regular walking patterns, how long would you say it took you to get to regular sleeping pattern?
Oh, mercy. Well, for one, when I was in the hospital with the dissection, they found out I had sleep apnea.
Mm-hmm.
So they put me on the BiPAP machine, which was, the full face thing, and they had it cranked as high as it would go. So we went round and round with that. That's a whole different story. Got out of the hospital and I had to go see a sleep doctor and found out, yeah, you do have sleep apnea, and they put me on a CPAP machine, which that will throw you until you get used to wearing one on trying to sleep, because you've got this, thing across your nose or across how you want it. I just liked it across the nose. Took me a little bit of time to figure it out, but boy, howdy, I sleep so much better with it now than I did before. But yeah, it took me probably about a month or so before I finally actually got to where I could sleep and everything and felt good. Now I know when we first got home, they sent an oxygen machine home with me, which was kind of strange, but they had me sleeping with an oxygen tube for the probably first 2 weeks I was there, and that was kind of strange.
I think that's the first time I've heard that. Okay.
Yeah, they had me on oxygen for first couple of weeks I was at home, and
so a lot of adjustments. Just
oh yeah, a ton of adjustments. I mean, going from having that, and of course you got the cord around your face, and all that, and you're tossing and turning, and next thing you know is you're getting pulling, and all that. So yeah, that was fun trying to figure that out. But yeah, it took about a little over a month before I finally got everything calmed down and used to it, and then could sleep and just slept peacefully and all night long.
Okay.
Yeah, but the hard part was the CPAP took a little bit of time, and just getting home and freaking out for every little chest pain or every little something. You just wake up instantly, and yeah, so that took a little bit of time, but about a month, a little over a month.
Okay, that's good to hear. When it comes to genetic testing, we always ask, do you have any immediate relatives, brothers or sisters? Do you have children that you want to get screened to make sure that this hasn't been passed down, or at least they know about it?
Well, one thing, my wife and I were discussing this today. No one in my family, other than I had my grandmother's brother's son, whatever he would make me to him, was 6'7". Other than that, no one in my family is like super tall but me. And so we were thinking about, wonder if we need to get checked for like Marfan, because I've never been checked for it. I was just wondering. Now, one thing we found out is 2 months before my dissection, I had to go in the hospital where the doctor thought I had pneumonia, and she gave me moxifloxacin, which we found out later causes aortic dissections. So we thinking that's where mine probably came from. Just a shot in the dark.
There's a thing there, a thread. Yeah, I can see that.
Because I did, after this happened, of course, I found out about John Ritter Foundation, did contact them, and they wanted me to do a genetic sampling. I sent them the stuff they needed, and they contacted me back and said, you do not have any genetic markers for dissections.
Yeah, and so that was 8 years ago?
Yes.
Okay, right. So we've had a genetic counselor come on not too long ago. We're actually redoing his blog posts from a couple of years ago. But the technology now is stating that, maybe every 5 years resubmit.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
About that, I was wondering about that, if I needed to redo it or something like that, because I'm just kind of curious to see if there's any changes or anything.
Yeah, and like again, I'll bring Bill back into this as he's our Marfan ambassador. He's also patient X in his family. Like, patient X is the designation of the first person to have the trait.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, and so that's not an unheard of thing, at all, really. And it's a thing that happens, almost kind of a bit random, like a lot of things in this world.
Yeah, it might be worth checking into, because like I said, I've got a son who's 21 and he's 6'1". So yeah, worth looking into, because I mean, if there's some genetic, then I want him to know before things get out of hand?
So the conventional explanations that we've heard so far is 10 years before the incident is when you really want to seriously have him monitored. Right?
Okay.
And this is one of those things where, I'm sure government officials meant well when they told insurance companies that they have to accept things. But go through the John Ritter Foundation. They don't share that information with anybody. And it'll be a precursor from not getting something like health insurance or life insurance. I can't remember which one becomes very troublesome to obtain. But what Karen does, and I think she's very intelligent for doing it, is she just treats her son as if he may have this. And so she makes sure that he understands what she's going through, understands the blood pressure, understands, all of the stuff that goes into that. And so he leads a very, clean, very, good lifestyle as well. So, it's kind of a byproduct of just, be aware that this kind of thing could be passed down. And so our understanding is that it's a 50-50 chance. It's a coin flip. Right. So, but you're not going to stop a kid from doing literally anything. I don't know. I don't know if any parents are out there.
Yeah. Especially when, they just turned 21. It's like, woohoo,
He gone.
But that was one of the things that, that was so wild was when we got out of the hospital is really serious. I mean, we were good about watching our diet anyway when we were working out and everything. And then to go from, like I said, I was a power lifter. I was lifting some heavy weights. To go from doing 10,000 calories a day to 1,200 calories a day was a big change. And then really watching the sodium intake, definitely no caffeine, very low sodium, which the low sodium part wasn't bad anyways, because I always watched my sodium intake, but really cutting back on it, changing up some of our eating habits. That was a big one too,
Mm-hmm.
So all of a sudden, and of course, and you love people, and being in the South, if somebody's sick, you take them food, and we had a lot of people love them. I thank them for it. They brought food over when when we got out of the hospital, love them for it. Most of them brought over Kentucky Fried Chicken. Great. Can't have it. Thanks, y'all. I can't eat this. That's just.
They brought themselves food to your house.
Yes. So that was fun. But I mean, bless their hearts. They were done. What they good Southerners do. Yeah. Yeah. Kentucky Fried Chicken just wasn't on the car. Yeah, so we thank them for it, and okay, yeah. So yeah, but it was definitely interesting. We learned, my wife, we go to the grocery store. Of course, I'd ride with her. You need to come inside. I'm not going inside because I want to ride one of those buggies. I'm not riding one of those little scooters. I'm not doing it. I'm 6'5", muscled up still. People gonna look at me funny. Finally, she, I got a big list. You got to come inside. Okay, and I just was terrified. Yeah, I had people looking at me funny and everything else, even though I had a cane in the thing and all that. You're like, yeah. Finally, it's like, yeah, I'm gonna ride the buggy. I don't care what they think.
Yeah.
I'm gonna live my life
and participate, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna live my life and I'm gonna have fun doing it. And then I just started having fun and didn't care if they liked it or not. I don't care. I'm gonna have fun doing it. God bless you and have a good day.
That's the way to be. That is the way to be. Molly has joined the chat. She says hello.
Hey, Molly, howdy.
She is Miss Self-Advocacy. One day we're gonna get her to tell her story. She's a firecracker when she gets into her story. It's very interesting.
Awesome.
Let's see here. So we covered the medication. We covered genetic testing. You very clearly detailed how you took your physical therapy into your own hands. Did you have an opportunity to pursue cardiac rehab?
Well, yes, they told me they wanted me to do it. Here's the benefit. Here's the side. Downside of living in a smaller town,
Mm-mm.
they didn't have it. They have it over in Memphis, which is across the bridge from us over in Arkansas. They had it over in Memphis. Well, I couldn't drive. My wife hates driving in Memphis. So, and the only places they had it were in some shady parts of town. So we just kind of
Skipped.
bypassed that whole part. And especially being, personal trainers. My wife had been one longer than I had, but both of us, I had 40 years of exercise knowledge and everything like that. She had, 20 something years of it. We kind of knew what to do. And from that point on. Now, am I saying that's what everybody should do? Not a chance. No, not even.
No, that's a wealth of information that you have going into your side of things. That's true. Yeah. And when you're an athlete, we've heard from the other aortic athletes that have gone through this. Athletes seem to be a little bit more in touch with their entire physiology. So, and quick to call out when things aren't working appropriately and very fast.
Yes. And I've told the doctors that and everything else, that I know when something doesn't feel right, based off of how my body is and how I've done with it. That was just like after one of the surgeries down there, they're like, your heart rate is so low. Your heart rate is so low. Why is it so low? It's like, well, let's see. I've been a cop. I've been a SWAT team member. I've been a sniper. You've learned how to control your breathing, how to control your heart rate. So now it's just second nature,
Mm-hmm.
to do it. Oh, okay, well, that makes sense. And so they let it go because, yeah, I have. Even after the surgery, my blood pressure was sky high, 52, 57 on a heart rate.
Wow.
I just not know. So, yeah. So we've had to deal with that, which was fun. But, yeah. Like I said, I wouldn't recommend any, unless you've got a wealth of knowledge about your, exercise and things like that, diet, yeah, definitely go see a cardiologist, cardiac therapy, and all that. We just, between the two of us, we have just her and her diet. I mean, she knows more about food than anybody else I can think of. So, of course, some of it she likes is just. I'm just.
Yeah, it's always that way, isn't it?
You gotta eat this. I'm like, no, I don't. No, I really don't. I really don't.
Velda,
no, I don't like some of that. But.
Velda is asking, did you have any therapy for post-traumatic stress?
Actually, no. And here's the reason why. I thought about it, prayed a lot about it, really prayed a lot about it. But one of the biggest things that helped me is having been a cop for 30 years and seeing what I've seen. I mean, not just working wrecks and things like that. My last couple of years as a detective, I worked sex crimes. So, and I'll leave it at that. So when you can push all that back, you can pretty much hide put the PSD right with all that mess, because you've already, being a cop, you've had it. You can't be a cop for more than 2 days without seeing something that's just going to jack you up. So, after 30 years, you just kind of deal with it and keep moving. However, in saying that, I'll say this. I would recommend that, anybody else that has a problem, please don't be afraid to go get help, because it is a traumatic event. It's a life-changing event. What you're going through. Your life is not the same ever again. So yeah, definitely. If you feel like you need to go talk to a therapist, please go talk to a therapist. There's no shame in it. I would not have any shame in it whatsoever, other than the fact that, I just knew how to suppress everything, and maybe that's good, maybe that's bad. I don't know.
It remains to be seen.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe a little bit easier, but yeah, if I ever felt like I needed to go see someone, I would. I honestly would.
And Jennifer Benton has joined the chat, and she says, "Great question, Velda. This really does affect mental health." Hello, Jennifer.
That's my wife.
I bet. Let's see. Okay, so, and you did a pretty good job with answering the questions about any advice that you might give. I feel like that rounds out the course of questions I typically have. Yeah.
Well, cool. Anybody have any questions? Go ahead and feel free to ask.
Yeah, yeah. Chat's going to be about 25 or 30 seconds behind. Tell us a little bit about some of the hobbies that you get into now.
Well, the biggest one that we're doing right now, we're getting into gardening,
Yeah.
which is a first for me. I've never been a big gardener, but for some reason this year, just we're having fun. And what started it? I am Texan through and through, and I wanted some bluebonnets, so I ordered some bluebonnet seeds. Well, also I am a diehard supporter of the nation of Israel. That's what the Bible says.
Mm-hmm.
I'll bless those that curse those that curse you. Well, what we did a few years ago was we picked a country and we decided let's cook what they would eat for breakfast. So we did Europe one time, and we did something. I was looking at Israel. Well, I found that Israel grows black tomatoes. How cool would that be? I got some black tomato seeds. So, we're decided we're going to grow a little garden this year. Like I said, my grandmother passed away. Well, I knew she had seeds from her sister that she had had for 40 years, and she grew some of those tomato plants. So I said, I'm going to grow some of these. We planted some, and we've got 40-year-old seeds coming up.
Very cool.
Well, now we're getting into like, oh, this is really cool how we're doing it. So yeah, that's my thing right now is gardening. I'm just loving it. Doggone it, we missed the Preakness.
Did you?
Yes, it was today. I forgot. Yeah, my wife loves show jumping. I love rodeo. I'm old country. She loves the show jumping and all that. But yeah, so we watch that. We watch a lot of old movies together. We love the old movies. So we watch a lot of old movies and things like that together. Westerns, all that. But right now, gardening is kind of our thing right now.
That's very cool.
We're having fun.
I'm glad to hear that.
That, and we rescue cats.
Yeah.
So we have 26.
26 cats.
Yes.
You hear somebody say they
cats.
rescue cats, and you don't think 26. You think 4 to 6.
Yeah, we have 20. They don't all live in the house, by the way. They don't live in the house. Majority of them are outside, front yard and backyard, and we have it secured. We got places for them to sleep and everything else. They get fed. They're all spayed and neutered, shots and everything else. We take good care of them. But yeah, we have rescue cats. Tom was, as a matter of fact, Tom, the one that saved my life as a rescue.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
A cat saved your life. I forgot about that.
Yeah. He's the one that like I said, he would not let me lay down, would not at all. So yeah. So that's another reason why I said God knew what he was doing, because he's since these idiots won't listen to go to the hospital, you help them out. Because it was after that my wife said, you maybe need to go to the hospital. And in all honesty, when we were going over there, the paramedic was listening to my heart. And he said, well, you got an irregular heartbeat. I said, what do you think they're going to do? He said, I'll probably put in a pacemaker, no big deal. And I'm sitting there thinking, 50 years old and having a pacemaker. Man, what the heck? I work out and everything else, and I'm going to have a pacemaker? No, I ain't fixing to have a pacemaker. I'm having an aortic. I'm dying, dude. It's amazing how many people, don't catch all the signs and everything, and trying to educate them.
Yeah, man. It's called the great mimicker for a reason. We don't like to hear those stories where somebody, is told very emphatically, listen, you have a very stressful life, go home and relax. And that's not good advice. That is not why somebody brought themselves to the emergency room.
We had a guy that was working at the animal shelter down there, and he was talking about he was having pains in his chest. I said, dude, go get it checked out, have them check your aorta. I said, because if they pop up and they say, well, you're not having a heart attack, check your aorta. I said, because you could be having a dissection. Please, I tell people all the time that talk about it now about, my chest don't feel good. Check your aorta. Check your aorta.
I like
it. Because we thought I had a gas bubble, and turned into aortic dissection. Wow,
Yeah, Karen also said the same thing. She said she thought she was having a bad reaction to some lunch. And then she ended up founding Aortic Hope because it definitely wasn't lunch.
No, definitely wasn't. Definitely wasn't a gas. Wasn't lunch. Yeah, it's amazing, and God uses things like that to happen to get the word out. I mean, look at look at what, how big it's gotten, you know, and, now I appreciate, I get on there every day when I see, the person's aortiversary, happy aortiversary, warrior, because you are, whether you think it or not, whether you're a little old lady or, whatever, you're a warrior, you survived something that a lot of people couldn't, so you're a warrior. So keep it up, keep going.
I like that. Molly will appreciate your cheersing her on for the anniversary. She's picked up that mantle. We want to thank Sarah for pushing everything up to the new formats. Very good stuff.
Yeah. Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, they're doing it. I like it. I love it.
Yeah.
And it's great. And don't be afraid to, ask questions, ask questions.
Yeah. For those of you that are new to the Aortic Cope, make sure you find your way into the private forums.
Yes.
They are quick to respond with any and every kind of piece of advice. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. I know after my surgeries, I got on there and made some comments on there and had people popping up and answering some stuff. And, and then what was cool was like one of them popped up and she used the same surgeon. She used the same one. Is like, oh, awesome. Great.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Very comfortable, right?
Yeah. Yes,
2 wins under his
worth,
belt. That's really awesome.
Oh, yeah. This guy.
Jennifer says, your wife, me beating on his back, I'm sure it didn't help. LOL.
Yeah.
She trying to burp a 6'5" gentleman.
Yeah. And at the time, I think my wife had hit 305 on bench press. So yeah, she had some weight behind her. Yeah. Yeah. She was strong. We didn't call her Strong Jen for nothing.
Good to have you, Strong Jen. Good to have you. All right, you want to tell these nice people to like and subscribe?
Oh yes, please do. Please like and subscribe.
Cool things that we get to do on YouTube. Go for it.
Oh, is this the like? And definitely hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Give me a thumbs up, but definitely subscribe. Watch this channel. You will not be sorry.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. And we will see you pretty soon, I think, with another Survivor Series. Scott, you tell a good story. Thank you so much for helping us share it.
Thank you for letting me share it. Anytime. Thanks y'all for watching.